Porter County Redevelopment meeting. We'll start with roll call.
You want me to do it, Debbie?
Yeah, I
do
don't
it?
have any.
Go ahead. You want me to do it? Yeah.
Jim Biggs,
Here.
Jeremy Rivas,
Here.
Don Ensign,
Here.
Andy Miletta,
Here.
Jason Gilliana,
Here.
Bill Herring.
Here.
We're all here, sir.
Number 4 on the item here is the oath of office to Jason and Scott.
Jason, will you
Or
please?
Jason and Scott giving the oath.
Yeah. Please raise your right hand. Solemnly swear. I, Jason Gilliana,
I, Jason Gilliana,
do solemnly swear that I will support
do solemnly swear that I support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and I will faithfully and impartially
and I will faithfully and impartially
discharge my duties as member
discharge my duties as member
of the Porter County Redevelopment Commission
of the Porter County Redevelopment Commission
according to law and the best of my ability.
according to the law and the best of my ability,
So help me God.
so help me God.
Just sign that. Thank you.
Look a little taller.
It's my shoes.
Thank you, sir.
Consent agenda, we have an approval of minutes, May 23rd, 2023. The financial report and approval of claims. I believe we can do all those at once, can't we, Scott?
We can.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda, which is the approval of the minutes of May 23rd meeting, 2023, financial report, and approval of claims. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Okay,
Can we go now to item 7?
yes.
Let me introduce my former colleague and my good friend, John Bowker, who is the chairman of the Valpo Kiwanis Ramp Project.
Thank you, Stu. I worked with Stu on the Valpo Redevelopment Commission for over 25 years, so forgive me. I still know him. But I just wanted to come by and say thank you to this body for their support of the Kiwanis Ramp project by helping us out with our rent after we lost our storage space. I can tell you that we are actively looking for, if anybody becomes aware of, a place for us to be able to construct a 1,200 square foot pole barn somewhere centrally located in the county to allow us to continue our efforts. We have 60-plus ramps outstanding. We've done 180 of them in the last 15 years. We have almost $300,000 in ramps out in the community, and we continue to put them up and take them down. And at our Kiwanis International Convention last Thursday, we were announced as the third, we won the Bronze Award out of 18,000 worldwide Kiwanis projects. We came in third place for our ramp committee, losing to a hospital that was built in Denton, Texas 100 years ago and supported by Kiwanis, and a fund in Nepal that provides chickens for new parents of newborns. And our ramp committee came in third, and we're very proud of that. It is unfortunate that we received the award based on us putting in a ramp for a 19-year-old girl from Washington Township who was in a very bad truck accident and is now paralyzed from the waist down. But we would have all given the award back if we didn't have to do that. But we were glad that we were able to help her. And again, I just wanted to thank you for your efforts. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, first of all, thank you for your efforts. I mean, I can't think of many things that to invest our money in that could have been a better use than what you're going to put that money to use. So, but thank you.
Thank you. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
John, your slideshow presentation was pre-submitted to the Redevelopment Commission members, so in the interest of time, we're going to skip it because they've all had the opportunity to see it.
And thank you. And if you have any questions, be happy to meet with anybody one-on-one to discuss it and show you what we do, and we always have a pair of work gloves available.
Thank you.
Item 9, please. Item 9 is a loan for the rehab of the sheriff's house. Commissioner Regnitz will present this.
All right, at the commissioners' meeting on June 12th, the commissioners voted to lease out the sheriff's residence for a period not to exceed 3 years and not to exceed $25,000 in revenue a year. And we had met with 2 certified appraisers, and they had, because we have to do that legally to get a market appraisal for what the lease payment will be, and we're going to have to take the average of those 2, which is going to be roughly $1,950, roughly, potentially. They had suggested that instead of leasing it as is, that we take an amount of money to renovate it to the point that it would be move-in ready. And they determined there would be 3 things that they recommended: that we replace the restroom on the first floor, that we put in a kitchenette, and that we put in air conditioning. And we did just an evaluation of what that would cost, and that came in at $120,000. And so I think it was my esteemed colleague Stu Summers that recommended that we might come to the RDC and request a loan to be paid over a 5-year period. Now, it's possible that that could happen more quickly. In 3 years, once this lease is up, we could potentially lease out more than the first floor. But at this point in time, we can't lease it out for more than $25,000 a year. And if you do the math, you'll know that $25,000 plus $25,000 plus $25,000 is $75,000 for 3 years. So in the worst case, it will be about roughly a 5-year payback to the RDC.
Thank you, Bert. Do we have any questions for anyone?
Why can you only lease it for $25,000? What's the?
Scott can tell you about the legal reasons for.
If the county executive attempts to lease county-owned property without council sign-off, they are limited to 3 years of a lease, and that lease, based upon a fair market rental value by appraisers, cannot exceed $25,000. So, to be clear, the rental price of the property that in discussion is not being artificially lowered. Those appraisals came back, they were less than $25,000, and if the commissioners wanted to do a lease that was longer than 3 years, or the fair market rent of the facility created more than $25,000 a year, they would have to have council approval.
I guess my point of the question is, I sit on the council, and the council doesn't agree with this, and I believe that's probably one of the reasons you're here. It's another historical building next on campus of the Memorial Opera House that we had agreed to have it part of a larger project, the renovations and connecting of the 2 buildings. So, the reason the council doesn't agree with this is because they think this should be fixed through that project, and it shouldn't be leased out. That we don't believe we're in the business of leasing property out. We're not in that business. That it should be upgraded with the big plan over there, and then it should be used within county government. So.
And just to respond to Councilman Rivas, the commissioners have not approved that larger project. And just to give you a little background on the sheriff's residence, it has been vacant since March of 2020. And the taxpayers are still responsible for all the utilities. It's roughly $10,000 a year with a NIPSCO bill, and that building continues to deteriorate. So we see this as an opportunity to at least do some renovation now. And once this loan is repaid back to the RDC, then we will use that money as a self-funding mechanism to keep that building renovated.
And actually, Porter County government has a long and rich history in leasing property out. Some members of the council or even the Board of Commissioners may not be aware of that, but we lease out the Opera House all the time. We lease out the county fairgrounds. We lease out the county fairgrounds buildings, the Expo Center, on a regular basis. So we have a long history of leasing our property out. Now, this may seem a little unorthodox because it is set there for 3 years empty and wasting away. I personally, Commissioner Rignitz, I applaud you for taking the time and the effort to to look into a useful, you know, program for that building. And I think, you know, it's one that, you know, doesn't lock us in for anything, you know, a 10-year span of time or anything. It's 3 years, and if it works well, then we'll continue. If it don't work, at the very least, we spent some money in there to update some utilities in it, and I think it's a win-win for us. I don't know why we wouldn't be doing it. That's just my feeling.
Commissioner Biggs, when you say leasing things out, I think you're talking project by project or event by event, and these other venues you're talking about,
But we're literally leasing the buildings out.
for events,
Yes.
not leasing it to a business, you know, to permanently occupy or, you know, temporary on a long-term basis, or whatever you want to consider 3 years. But it's been vacant since the museum left there, and I believe those were beginning conversations of using it as part of the whole operations of the Opera House over there. So, you know, and that was the goal, that it was going to be part of the whole project, that was going to be fixed and used for that.
But Jeremy, it was a project that the commissioners never voted on and sent it to the council for approval.
I'm not sure about the exact details, Jim, of what you guys, you know, approved, but you were part of approving the...
Right, we did or we didn't, and we didn't.
Yeah.
We never sent that to, the Board of Commissioners never sent that project on. And if, you know, if we're gonna get in the weeds with this, let's get in the weeds with it. Then you know, we already know, talking to Skillman, that project was, their last price tag that they put on it was $9.5 million to do. We don't have nine, we have $5 million. And the commissioners are ready to move and repair that building, which should not be looked at as a booby price to anybody. $5 million is a lot of money to spend in any building, and we're willing to do that.
Did that $9.5 million include the sheriff's residence and connecting the two?
Yes.
And what we're looking to spend on the sheriff's residence is far less than what that project would have entailed. So what we're trying to do is make it into, you know, at least put it in a state where it is marketable and that we can get a great tenant in there. We currently have, even though we haven't even advertised it yet, although we will be advertising it shortly, even though we haven't advertised it yet, we already have an incredible tenant that is so afraid that they're going to lose it. And I think that everyone will be really, really happy if they're the ones that actually win that bid.
I mean, I see, Jeremy, I see the value in your argument. There's not all parts of it do I disagree with, and I understand why you fought so very hard, I think, over probably the last 4 months for this. I get it. But with me, it all comes down with money, because it's not our money, it's the taxpayers' money, and I don't know where $4.5 million is laying around to make up, you know, that shortfall.
Isn't that a good question for the fiscal body
Well,
that I sit on?
Well, yeah, you can make that argument, Jeremy, but it is the executive body who makes the decision of what projects move forward.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to do your job, and I appreciate you not trying to do ours.
Well, it has to go on both sides. So, but this is just, you know, one component of it, right? I mean, going back to this redevelopment commission and kind of our focus, our focus, I thought, has been good, is the Route 6 corridor, you know, in unincorporated South Haven, you know, and maybe some on 49 there. So, you know, the focus has been in true redevelopment and staying focused on, you know, getting off the ground and Tiffin area. Now all of a sudden we're shifting and we're going to start venturing off into leasing historical properties that are, you know, it just, why are we veering off of, you know, our focus?
Well, first of all,
really gotten us going?
I'll answer your question. First of all, I truly believe, without exception, this is the type of project, because we're talking about bringing a business into downtown Valpo. First of all, we're not talking about leasing it to another government entity. And, you know, let's be honest here. Where was the economic benefit that when the EDC built the South Haven Fire Station? Now, I'm not saying that was a bad project. I'm just saying, if you want to talk about unorthodox, that was unorthodox.
No, I think that was in focusing on unincorporated South Haven over there. you're talking about the garage, the highway garage, why we were doing all that stormwater work over there, and why we're focusing on the redevelopment over there. I think that was part of that focus in unincorporated.
Well, when that was brought
township.
to my attention by a fellow commissioner, it was for the benefit of the county highway department. It wasn't for the benefit of South Haven. And I think that most of the residents out there would agree that it's the highway is benefiting by that station being out there, not them personally.
So if this body doesn't loan the money to repair, what happens to it?
Well, then what we're going to do is we will advertise it as is. And this party that is interested is willing to lease it that way as well. So we just won't be able to they can only put $75,000 into it. So we won't be able to renovate it to the extent that we would like to at that point.
And
So-
I think it's logical to think that we probably won't get the rent out of it that we thought we'd get if we're not
Yeah.
putting an investment.
Right. Regardless, we'll be writing an ad, and it will be advertised. So we will be leasing it. We've already voted that we will be leasing it. So it's really dependent on how we advertise it, whether it's as is or whether it's renovated. Now, one thing I will tell you is that we will not renovate it until we are absolutely certain and have a lease signed that we have somebody that will be moving in. So we're not going to waste any money if we don't have an actual tenant. We're going to create a non-reverting fund. This $120,000 will go into the non-reverting fund. It will be used to renovate it. We'll be advertising it, that it will be available after the first of the year. They will have a choice in some of the color schemes and everything when we're doing the finishes on it. And so they'll have some input into that. And we're just hoping that we can make it nice for them.
But if we don't rent it, the money goes back to the EDC,
Exactly.
and none of it's spent before.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Right.
Exactly.
And then I was talking to our executive assistant, because the lease payment will come in starting in January, and whatever frequency you want to get repaid back. I don't know if you care. She was suggesting every 6 months, with whatever's in that account, we transfer back into the RDC, and then we'll just keep track of that. And at the point in time that the RDC is repaid, then we will just use and save that up for future renovations, any additional work that needs to be done in that building.
I would just like to say I've been a member of a yearly member of the Memorial Opera House for many years. I've been a donor to the Memorial Opera House for many years. I was truly excited as the county did all the hearings at the Opera House and everything else to do this renovation. It's much needed. I highly appreciate the commissioners willing to go with the $5 million. But I'm afraid with the renovations of the bottom floor of the sheriff's department, that it completely, and I understand more money is being spoken about for the $9 million. I would like to see Scott Cherry's report that you have went forward with to see exactly what the cost would be for the total renovation and the additions that were going to be put onto the Opera House. They're much needed. I've stood outside of that Opera House in the rain waiting to get in because there's no lobby to get into. But I want to see the programs that our Opera House puts on. Both buildings are iconic buildings for this town, for this county. I don't know why Mayor Murphy is not sitting here saying, somehow we've got to work together to renovate both and do the renovations, because that's a huge economic boom for this county and for this city. The city has invested countless millions of dollars to improve this downtown, and we sit right on the corner. We've got our rare jewels and iconic buildings sitting here that we need to put, and I understand you need a South County garage. I'm part of South County, I understand. A very good friend, Al Hoagland, for years dealt with these buildings and the trucks and everything else that are here. I know that having spent 16 years as a councilman, it's hard to make these decisions of what you put your money in and where you put your money. But I'm sorry, I believe that doing something right now with the Sheriff's Department totally eliminates any possibility of you all coming together and somehow making this real renovation happen. So I just have to say that.
Well, Don, in rebuttal to that is that the council and the Board of Commissioners, leading up to this year, had ample time to move that project forward, but did not for whatever reason.
But I understand. I totally
So,
understand.
and the other thing of it is I can appreciate that building and the jail museum and what it may add to the downtown of the city of Valparaiso. But as a commissioner, we don't have the luxury of concentrating or spending all of our resources in one municipality. I've got the city of Portage, which is actually a larger city. I've got Hebron, I got Couts, I got Beverly Shores, I got Chesterton, I got Ogden Dunes. And, you know, and that's where the additional $4.5 or $5 million comes from. If I have to go raid someplace to make up that difference, I'm taking that from something,
I totally understand
yeah.
that, Jim.
And it's not a pleasant position to be in. You know, I don't like playing the role of the bad guy. But, you know, if there needs to be somebody that needs to speak up and say, hey, look, there's a 900-pound gorilla sitting there, and it's you know, it's costing us $4.5 million. Somebody needs to point that out. And again, we spoke just before the meeting, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, is that when did we get into a place where we look at $5 million as a booby prize?
I don't.
$5 million
I don't
is
look
an
at that
awful
way.
lot of money, and we're spending it on a building that we don't deliver any of our core services out of. I've got a $25 million bill in the jail that needs to be paid. I got a $15 to $17 million garage that needs to be replaced, and that's just the top of the iceberg. So I really thought, and, you know, Barb can speak for herself, but I really thought that I was stepping out in the middle of the road trying to meet somebody halfway by agreeing to spend $5 million.
And you are.
And I, you know, again, I'm not saying Jeremy's wrong. I'm just saying we disagree on this, and you know, it's that project only moves forward if the Board of Commissioners, the majority of them, decides it's in the best interest of the county to move it forward. So, and we've decided that is not the route that we want to take for various reasons. And
At our May 23rd meeting, we did have a unanimous vote by the commissioners as to what the scope was going to be of the Memorial Opera House renovations, and it did not include
yes,
that.
that's a very good point, that it was unanimous to move forward with the $5 million project. I'll entertain a motion unless somebody else has something else to say.
At the end of the day, just, you're, what you said, Don, if the renovations that they're doing, obviously, it's a lot of money, right, $120,000, but in the scheme of things, obviously, if the commissioners are putting $5 million into the house next door, how does that stop the project if down the road it does?
It doesn't at
come to
all.
fruition?
It does not. It doesn't preclude us from adding restrooms later on. It doesn't preclude us from doing anything in the future. It doesn't preclude anything in the future at all.
Well,
I
if
don't
you've
know.
got a tenant in there with a contract for 3 years, it's definitely gonna,
Well, in 3 years, you know, you could, or in 2 years, you can, you know, you could take a look at it and see if that's something that you want to do in 2 years.
Could you look at writing into a contract on a lease that,
At this point, that's not what we have voted to do, and I don't want to speculate as to where we're going to be in 2 years. We are going to be moving forward with leasing it, either as is or renovated, and it really is up to this board which way we're going to end up going, but we will be leasing it for 3 years, because we have voted to do that.
just the amount of energy spent to lease out a historic building is mind-boggling when it was part of a larger project, you know, with that footprint over there, with two historical iconic buildings that we're gonna use to let them spread out a little bit. They're crowded over there, you know, so it was gonna be used by county government, not some private business. But it was part of that overall plan, so to me, it's you know, the rush, the amount of energy to lease this out to somebody else, and, you know, it almost appears that we're trying to
I don't think we're
lock the
rushing. It's
plans
been
out a
empty.
little bit here.
It's been empty for 3 years, so.
Because it was beginning to be part of the bigger plan, the bigger project, so.
No,
It just
the
seems to
building's
me-
sat there for 3 years. Vacant.
So Jeremy, question for the council's perspective, right? They're obviously not going to allow this, right? You have the majority of the commissioners are saying, no, they're not going to do the larger project. For this particular one, knowing that they're not going to do it, what would the council's feeling be on that then? Knowing that it's not going to happen with the 9.5 million, with what we're talking about here, what would, I guess, what's the downfall of it from the council's perspective?
Because I would say that the majority of the council still hasn't given up on that project going forward. But this would definitely, putting a tenant in there locked in for 3 years, it's a good way to block it, you know, moving forward. So we haven't given up on it. We had voted on it, the majority have, and I don't think we agree with getting into the rental property business of, especially a historic building like that. It doesn't make sense that why we're gonna get into the rental property to begin with and using one of our historical buildings to do so.
No, I can understand that, but I guess at the end of the day, we know it's not going to happen, right? So do we let it sit for 3 more years
That's not the hope of the council. Hope of the council is the project
to
moves
try to get it forward?
Yeah.
Sure, understood.
I mean, that, you know, we're still fighting for that. It
Yeah.
makes sense, made a lot of sense. Using, over half of it was federal money, $5 million, a grant. Then we
But that's
had
gone,
the
right? I
founda-
mean, that's-
No, it's
that-
still there. The $5 million is still there. We had the foundation, the Memorial Opera House Foundation that told us for the entire project, they'd be willing to go out and raise $2.5 million. So this is a new number I'm just hearing. So that's $7.5 million. So we're talking about the county, trying to find, a couple $1 million to do. If we could hand over $2 million to get a $9.5 million project done, that has a huge impact on the quality of life, of residents, and it.
Well, when we talk about quality of life in the county of Porter, it doesn't mean we have to spend the money within a municipality that already has quality of life in quite abundance. I mean, if we're looking at truly spending money on quality of life and using county resources, it would make sense for us to spend them on county parks. We do not have a park currently in South County whatsoever. We have 63 acres that we purchased just north of Couts 10 years ago that has never been developed into a park. So if we're talking about quality of life, we're actually, many, many more people can come in and enjoy it, and they don't have to pay to use it. Investing in our county parks is actually probably a better choice. If you look at the location of the Memorial Opera House and now investing a bunch of money to expand that, we're creating more quality of life in Valparaiso, which has already an abundance. I would much rather take those dollars and spend them in areas of the county that we don't have an abundance of quality of life currently. So.
Where those historical buildings are, we can't move them. I mean, if you want to move them, I'd love to move them and put them in Portage. Like, yeah,
but
absolutely.
Jeremy, you're acting like we're willing to spend $5 million on that building. You
But
act like
it's-
that's, like I said, like it's some kind of booby prize.
Well, I mean, we could do this here, but it doesn't address the major issues over there. One of the major issues is going in there with those bathrooms. You're sticking 200-300 people into a small hallway to.
And Jeremy, this does not preclude us from doing
bathrooms.
bathrooms. This does not preclude us from doing bathrooms at all. And tomorrow, Scott McClure is going to be writing an ad. And he's either going to be writing an ad that it's going to be as is, or it's going to be renovated. Really, we don't care if you want to lend us the $120,000 or not. It's going to be leased regardless. We have a tenant at a minimum. We have one tenant at a minimum. So it really is up to the RDC. And we didn't even ask for the money outright. We're asking to borrow the money and we'll repay it.
And that's
So-
really the point here, folks, is that the County Board of Commissioners are asking for a loan. They're not asking to give the money, asking for a loan of a term of 3 years, or 5 years. right?
5 years.
So, I mean, and again, and Jeremy, with all due respect, this argument as to whether or not that project should move forward or shouldn't move forward is not, it shouldn't be on this board. It should be between the council and the commissioners. I think we've talked about that ad nauseum. And it really, and I don't know how much clearer I can make it, it all comes down to dollars and cents to me. And as I stated earlier, I've got more than downtown Valparaiso to worry about as a commissioner. I've got other cities and towns throughout in the unincorporated area of Porter County to think about as well. And I think Commissioner Rignett's is argument if we're going to invest into quality of life projects or programs, should it be in the middle of a municipality, or should it be in the unincorporated area?
That's where this building is, Jim. I know.
And we're ready to spend $5 million on it, Jeremy. Let's be honest. You're screaming over to me. That's not enough. That's not enough.
Doesn't take care of many of the issues, the reason that the conversation started on that project.
I know, Jeremy, but you know what? In all fairness to Commissioner Rignitz coming up here and asking for this, it was her that has applied for $1 million grant for that building over there, and she's been in office less than 6 months. Where was the other two commissioners or people on the county council making that effort?
I don't know, where were you, Jim? Where were you when we didn't do anything for 3 years over that building?
No, I wouldn't apply because I've never
No, I'm talking
approved
about
that
the sheriff
program, John.
residence. You're complaining that it
Jeremy?
sat vacant. Why didn't you do something with it 3 years ago? You don't
Because-
want to go down the path of you being a commissioner and what you did while you were a commissioner, Jim. That's not a good path.
Well, that's one I'll travel in. I'm proud of my record. Let's not turn this into a political display.
That's why I said it's not a good path.
Well, yeah, I think it is a good path. But like I said, she took the time to apply for $1 million grant for that building. Nobody else did. And the grant was the grant, if it comes through, would address bathrooms. So I mean, I don't know how much more fair we can be about it. I'm not going to apologize. I didn't support that build out. I will never support that build out. And I don't think I should have to. I think I give ample reason as to why. It's not that I. In a perfect world, I would love to see that. But we don't live in a perfect world. I've got other people with their hands out that need to be paid. We got project after project after project that needs to be addressed.
But here we are, worried about leasing a building.
Yep. Leasing a building that we're not using.
Renting
Get somebody in
renting a
there
building.
and bringing some money into county
A
government.
historic building. To who? So,
So, just real quick, at the end of the day, the 120,000, you're gonna do it regardless. Does it affect anything, because, forgive me, because I did miss the first couple of meetings this year, anything that we have planned on our board right now going forward?
Our budget is based on two $500,000 transfers from local income tax. One has come through because it was appropriated for this fiscal year. One didn't come through because it wasn't asked for, it fell through the cracks. If we don't get that $500,000, and by the way, the county council would have to approve it, then we will have to reevaluate the budget and might have to tighten up a little bit, be
I
honest
think the
with you.
answer is yes.
So the money, that $500,000 will be held up because of this. Because we won't agree to a build out. Good to know. Good to know. I'll entertain a motion. I'll motion to approve a agreement of a 5-year term, the amount of, what's the amount?
$120,000.
$120,000 for the rehab of the bottom floor of the old county sheriff's building. Have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
No.
Motion approved. Thank you. How are we on, Project Ribeye? Thank you, Barb.
Why don't you guys sit up here? Yeah, that'd be good. Mr. and Mrs. Schoen are with Project Ribeye. They are Project Ribeye. If you go to our website, that's what it says. We were invited to a meeting in the town of Hebron to talk about extension of municipal sewer and water utilities to the site. The town president, who is here, correct me if I'm wrong, expressed an interest that he would rather you guys TIF this project because it's outside the city limits. Although, actually, as I'm reading new statutes that have come in effect this month, you have that option, I think, next month. But anyway, so we've been meeting with Mr. Schoen. Tonight's meeting is basically not to approve a TIF district, but to give me direction, me and Scott, direction to work with the developer to work out a development agreement that we would then bring back to you in August. Timeline is a TIF district cannot be approved unless it first goes by the Plan Commission as being consistent with the county plan. That is, zoning has to be in place first. It is currently not zoned for what is being proposed, so they're going through the zoning process tomorrow and July, and then when the
Is that with the county or the town?
county,
County.
the county plan commission and commissioners will consider, and if they approve the zoning, then it becomes eligible for us to TIF it. So while it's going through the zoning process, I would have direction from you to negotiate a development agreement. I've outlined the terms. Don understands this. He's done it before. And then we would bring that back to you in August. And then somewhere before December 31st, we would go through the whole TIF process. But right now, it's kind of like, do you want me to work with these people or not? And let me introduce them to you, and you can decide.
My name is Nelson Schoen. I live in Valparaiso, near Washington, in Washington Township. This is my wife, Sandy. She's the brains behind this outfit, and definitely the better half. But we are planning to build a meat processing plant south of Hebron at the crossroads of State Road 2 and 231, where 2 turns west towards I-65. That is 1.4 miles south of Hebron, the end of Hebron's water and sewer lines. So we are proposing to extend those lines all the way down to our site. We would pay for that, but we would hope a TIF district would be put in place to reimburse us until that is taken care of. So the meat processing plant is scaled to do 108 cattle a week, 20 hogs a week. You may not be aware, but there's a tremendous problem in the nation of custom processing. There is a huge shortfall. And the locavore movement of people wanting to know where their food comes from has created that. They want to know that, and so they go to the farmers, they ask if they can get some freezer beef or that, whatever it might be, and the farmer has to tell them, I can't help you because I can't get a processing slot for my animals. Every custom processing plant in the nation is running 6 months to a year or longer as far as a backlog is concerned. I've talked to farmers who have literally secured a processing slot 2 years in advance, before the calf is even born, because it's that serious. And when with Indiana, there are 200,000 cattle raised for processing, but there's only enough custom processing for 50,000. That extra 150,000 goes to the auction houses and goes to the big four, that being Cargill, JBS, Tyson, and National Beef Sales. And they do about 85% of all the beef processing in the country. But it's not custom. It's not custom processing. So if you want to have your steak a certain thickness or so many to a package and that, they're not going to be assistance to you. With the COVID crisis, this all got put on steroids, this problem. People came into the stores, couldn't find meat in the counters, went across the street and bought every single upright and chest freezer existing. There was a time there where you had a 6-month to a year backlog just to get a freezer. Then they had to go to the custom processor to get them filled. And that's when the problem got exacerbated by this COVID crisis. What we're trying to do is affect a small portion of this. We can't solve the industry problem, but we can certainly make an impact in a community. And we chose this site because we have a great population base to pull from. There are 750,000 people in Lake Porter, Jasper, and Newton County. And a lot of them want to know where their meat's coming from. So we expect to pull from that market. We also want to help the 4-H'ers. 4-H'ers, when they sell their livestock at the county fairs, are having difficulty getting processing for their animals. And if they can't get them processed, then the buyers won't buy them because nobody wants a 1,400-pound pet in their backyard. So they're suffering through all this as well. We plan on, with our facility, committing the month of July and the first 2 weeks of August to take care of any 4-H animal that doesn't have a place to go and get them processed for 6 surrounding counties.
When we spoke this morning, I told you that we were on a tight time frame,
I
and
understand.
there might be some questions. Let me start, if I may, without being offensive. Please understand that to start this process is going to take time, my time, Scott's time, financial advisors' time's money, and we want to be assured that this is a real deal project, that you have financing in place. Can you address that for the commission, please?
The bank that we're using is called North Avenue Capital. It's a national bank. They primarily work with USDA loans. We have a $12 million letter of interest from them. We have a group of investors who have made a verbal commitment. Thursday we'll be getting that closer to a letter of intent of $3 million. And then I have put in $1 million of my own money, and we have the real estate, which should get appraised at about $500,000, and then we have one investor that's already put in $500,000 as well. So we should have $5 million. We only need about $3 million of that actually to meet the USDA requirements.
And I apologize for my ignorance on the letter from the bank. What did you call the letter?
It's a letter of interest.
Interest.
So it's not a letter of intent. I mean, they're not making a commitment. They could back out at any time, but they have said that with what they have heard and what we have provided them in documentation and that they would send it to underwriting.
And when would that underwriting be affirmed?
When I have the letter of intent from the investors for $3 million, we'll be able to go to the bank and get the underwriting started.
So is that something that can be done before we meet again in August?
Oh, absolutely. It will be done before we meet again in August.
So we'd have that documentation in place?
Yes.
The financing's in place. If it's okay with you, Mr. President, I'd ask Don, he lives down there and he's gone through these processes before, let him be the first to start asking questions.
Well, basically, what kind of a percentage on the TIF? We create the TIF for you. What kind of percentage are you talking?
I know very little about TIFs. This would be all part of the negotiating with Stu and Scott, and so.
Generally, what we've done is we reserve 15% of the TIF for the schools. That leaves 85%. 10% is kind of negotiable because there are administrative and carrying costs, and at least 75% of the TIF would be available to repay the loans, the bonds that are issued. So 75 for the developer, 15 for the schools, 10 kind of,
Coming back into paying our bills and
yeah.
paying your wages and so on and so forth, and taking care of any costs. That's basically how our TIFs were created down in Hebron for our subdivisions. So
I understand.
we have a payback that they've invested $16 million in a development there, and they will receive 70% of our TIF money back to them, and 30% comes back to us right now at the HRC in Hebron. So those numbers jive with what I would think would be a considerable amount to make your investment to pay back and cover things here, and actually increase the money coming into the redevelopment commission here too. So it would be a win-win on that part of that investment. Once you would issue those bonds would be issued in the negotiation. You would buy the bonds at that point in time.
Well, that's my understanding, is I would buy the bonds, and the part that, I have to say I did not understand is that Hebron would own the the sewer and water lines. So I pay for it, but they own it. I offered to have them pay for the building that we want to put up, and then I would own it, but I didn't get any takers on that one.
And I think that there's some work to be done between the
Yes.
town and the developer on those water sewer lines.
Yeah.
Typically, when we did sewer extensions in the city of Valparaiso, as people paid tap-on fees, they were required to help pay for the, reimburse the developer, whether it was the city or whoever, part of the cost of tapping into that. It wasn't,
And that would be written into your, and that would be the negotiations that would be written into your TIF agreement.
well, and that's actually going to be an agreement between the
Between the
town
town and
and the
the-
developer, because they own the utility. But I think, and we could help advise you on that, Matt Reardon could too, there would be, if someone wants to tap into the line, typically what happens is, that's one way to get the easement in front of the property, or you can tap into this line and every tap in is going to be $10,000 or something, and then that helps pay off the bonds early, basically.
Yeah, defray your costs.
Right.
So
I'm all about defraying my costs.
I understand that, yes. So just for everybody's information, the TIF has worked very well for us with our developers and that right now. It's helped us move forward, and we actually paid back National Bank a little bit of money from the TIF this month, went on the first TIF draw going back to the developer. So even though he's building the first house right now, the infrastructure has created some TIF revenue, and so that's starting to pay back to him already. And so it works well, it really does.
TIFs are generally very misunderstood, but they're a terrific economic development tool. They really are.
Now, I'm not asking you for, the $1.2 million that we think it's going to cost for the installation, just to help defray the costs. We want to get this project up and running by, well, we'd like to break ground in early October. I don't know how feasible that is, but I'm going to do everything on my part to make that happen, and so try not to miss a single one of your meetings to get whatever approval we need and not have to delay for the next one.
So Stu, what do you see the RDC's role here, if
Well-
we were to move forward?
First of all, let me ask if you'll recognize the town council president.
That good-looking guy on the end there? Absolutely.
Well, gentlemen, I just wanted to tell you that Hebron, I know Don is obviously down there every day. I know that Jeremy's been there, and Commissioner Biggs has been down there. But Hebron is in the largest boom that it has had since its founding in 1890. And it is because the people that are down there are hustling. They're working, they're knocking on the doors of developers. They are making sure that we deal with creative TIF districts that have happened. The fact that we haven't had any economic development down there in 25 years, not one subdivision put in, and we now have 1,000 homes coming in. We have another 1,000 homes that we are going to likely service. We already have a letter to do so into Lake and Porter County. We have taken dilapidated buildings that were eyesores that are now revenue positive, and the entire community is building up. We have a Taco Bell that's coming in. Why do I tell you this narrative? Is because most people like to help people who are helping themselves. And we have a group of people right now that are economically motivated, they work well together, and we're trying to be competitive. This project, Ribeye, is going to help us take some of this ag business that has been traditionally going to Newton County and to Jasper County and do something that makes sense to us by putting it closer to people while still putting it in an ag area and benefiting the entire community. We had recently had this thing is in my way. I can't dance with it.
Yeah, we kind of need that.
I know. We had a turbo processing place that moved to Crown Point, and we lost probably 15 jobs with that going. Here, we're going to have 30 jobs available to people in the surrounding areas. We have got an injection molding place that's coming in. We are hustling. So when you consider this is not giving an opportunity to a community that is not hustling and not working hard, but we are becoming competitive. And I sincerely believe that Hebron is one of the next places to live. 231 with the corridor that is happening there, with the hospital, with the Andrean possibly coming down there. Hebron is on the cusp of something big. We're in the middle of it, and this could be one of our keystones. So please consider helping.
Mr. John Spinks.
Yes, sir.
Nobody introduced you, so.
That's all right.
So Jim, I would suggest that you entertain a motion directing me and Scott to negotiate in good faith with the developers and bring something back to you in August.
All right. So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Well, I just, a few questions though. I mean, what, again, I think you asked the commissioner, I mean, our role, what would be our role exactly?
Our role would be to create a TIF district, which would go through here, the Plan Commission, the commissioners, and back here. Then we would issue bonds to finance the sewer and water extension that the town is going to work with the developer. The developer will buy those bonds, and the pledge on the bonds will be the TIF revenue, the tax increment revenue that spins off of this development. If, and you asked about downsides. If, for example, tax revenue was short and the bond was $100,000 payment was due and only $90,000 came, the shortfall is on the buyer of the bonds, in this case, the developer. So there's no financial risk to the public entity, to the Redevelopment Commission or to the county, but we would be the conduit for issuing those bonds and then using the proceeds of those bonds to pay back the developer for his expenses in working with the town to extend sewer and water lines.
In this area over there, you know, yeah, I've been down there through, but I mean, is this an area that's gonna grow? I mean, we're gonna TIF this little area. Is there a reason that, I mean, is it a larger area for development in the future that would make sense, or just a pocket TIF here, you know?
Well, you always expect the mayor to say yes. I've been through that corridor, and I think at that intersection and then going north up to the town limits, if you have sewer and water, you've already got NIPSCO gas and you've already got NIPSCO electricity, you've already got a state highway and actually the intersection of two state highways, then I think you do have what's in place for a corridor of development.
And then traffic. I mean, imagine semis coming in?
No,
No?
one of the things that we're...
Cowboys in a cattle herd every morning.
Yes, that's pretty much it. One of the reasons we picked this particular location is, number one, it's a four-way stop. So it's a safer crossroads for us to be on. And we expect, you know, to be doing 25 cattle on average per day. So we're only talking a few pickups and trailers that are coming in each morning to drop off the animals. We will have no animals overnight. Only those animals being processed come in that day. And then we'll have customers. But again, being a four-way stop, it makes it a very safe intersection.
And a relatively short distance to 65, right?
Yeah, 5 miles from west of, or east of I-65.
Is there any environmental impact?
No, because we're going to the sewer and water lines of Hebron, we don't have a lagoon system or a septic field or any of those sort of issues, or a well. And we will have a pretreatment system in our facility so that what we send to Hebron will meet their specifications, so that we're under any limits that they have placed upon us. We've already talked to their engineers and told them what we want to do, and they have said we can handle that.
We would have been completely against the lagoon system. We love the idea of servicing this plant. It's going to do 20,000 gallons a day, which is going to help us with our new plants. We're in the process of putting in a new water plant. There was just a new sewer plant put online. This is an economic development tool that is going to allow us to hook into 511 more homes that is going to be on the north side of town. And I can't understand, Stu did a great job, but there is at least a mile of area in which 2 miles possibly that could be developed for more agricultural business. And I absolutely agree that moving north, there is on the east and west side already property that's put under abatement that is ready for development. What we have found is, everybody finds, is that as soon as one thing pops up, we advertise it and we get other investors that are coming. We've got a long-time restaurant that's getting ready to be sold to an outside investor that's been around since 1952. We had subcontractors from the builders that have purchased other buildings that are going to renovate them. So my expectation is in the short time, it's going to be competitive, that we will find other people that want to come in. Because this has a retail side of it. I don't want to steal any of your thunder, but it's about 1,500 square feet, which for a community that is lacking a grocery store at this moment this is going to give us an opportunity to service some of those needs as well. Plus draw attention to other investors that may want to come into the grocery store. This is really a key component.
Okay. Well, we're running,
Very late.
we're running tight on some time here. I mean, if what I'm hearing is if we're here to help, if you can satisfy that our request as far as showing financial stability. Any other questions?
No.
There's a motion on the floor, there was a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
And we're going to, because we're, we've got 4 minutes
Enjoy
here.
your grilling.
Okay, if you want me to do
Yeah,
a 4-minute
thank you.
slideshow.
Oh, you got a slideshow?
It's 4 slides.
Okay,
I'll
go
get
ahead.
through it.
Do it.
Can you bring it up? I just want to give a quick update on the code enforcement in South Haven. I went out there this morning. It's a mixed bag, but we've got a few before and after slides we'd like to show you. Here's the corner where we told them, in the left side, you see a sign on the side of that car wash. We told them that was illegal, and today that sign is gone. Next slide. There was this dilapidated truck that was being used as advertising. That's against the code. That's gone. There was barbed wire on top of the fence. Went out there this morning. That's gone. There was a dilapidated house on the left. We sent them a letter. There's a crew out there this morning working on it. So we are making, banners in the right-of-way have been removed. So there are some property owners that have obliged to our request to be good neighbors, and frankly, there's some that have ignored us. And, this is your job. You approved some money last time to improve there's work to be done here. We found carpets in plastic bags and bicycles and other things down in that wetland that's private property. I'm going to.
In front of Burger King there?
Yeah, I'm going to have to work and find a solution. The owner is a nonprofit out of Gary, and something's going to have to be done there, but we'll work on that. And then Scott will give you a quick update, next slide, on some of the other work that's underway.
So I've had a long discussion with the attorney for one of these car lots, I believe the yellow, and a long discussion, and things were not going well until the concept of this is an entire corridor getting cleaned up. And then, because their main concern through their attorney was what the competition was doing, what the competition was getting away with. And when I made it clear that it's not just them, there was not a neighborly complaint, this wasn't a situation where somebody got upset next door, this was a county initiative to clean up the corridor. The tune changed quite a bit and actually became cooperative, so I'm looking forward to continue to work with them to try to get all of that signage down into some sort of compliance. So it's moving a while forward, and I think now that we've had some of the individuals just ignore our beginning, I think Stu is going to be handing over a few of them for a little bit more enhanced enforcement, shall we say.
Yeah, we asked them to play nice. A lot of them did. Those that don't, they're going to get a letter from Scott.
Well, and I think that's good real quick because we have other people that have complied, it's a lot easier to say, see some of your neighbors, see the corridor, it's not just you, because, a lot of these people believe they're,
Being picked on.
they're being picked on, is really the feeling when you first start all of these conversations.
It's remarkable that any of them would feel that, because what you're doing is actually enhancing the value of their own property.
But once they get that concept, they do flip and become cooperative for the most part. But at first, there is a long process to get through. You are here because someone snitched on me, my competitor complained, there's some enemy out there I don't know for whatever reason. And ultimately, when they realize it's the whole corridor is getting cleaned up, that does go away for the most part.
Quick question. What happens when you cross the Porter Lake County line or going the other way in LaPorte? Could there be somebody 150 feet across the county line that looks just as bad as the things we're fixing up?
Andy will tell you this. There's tough code enforcement in Portage.
Well, that's
You
what I
cross
was-
over 450, lawns are mowed, sidewalks are clean,
Okay.
signs, there aren't any, it's it's a world of difference where there is enforcement, and that's what we're trying to do.
Okay.
In fact, what's happening now, Bill, is maybe the opposite of what you're suggesting.
Yeah,
Let's
well-
get out of Portage and into South Haven where we can get away with it.
Yeah.
And now, those days are coming to an end.
Okay, I just kind of didn't want to have some guy 150 feet from the county line look over there and his competitors abusing it.
Are you good?
I'm good.
All right. Any other questions by any of the members? We're adjourned.
Thank you all.
See you guys.
Have a good one.